potential is our gift from God. What we're capable of is our gift from God. And I can't fathom anything more horrifying than you dying with all your potential left inside of you because you were worried about what other people would think of you stepping into who you were meant to be.
Welcome to Jesus Calling Stories of Faith. Our guest for this episode is Rachel Hollis, the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Girl, Wash Your Face. Rachel is a top motivational speaker and CCO of the Hollis Company, plus a mother of 4. Today, she shares some deeply personal tragedies and triumphs along her journey to success, and the motivation behind why she desires to challenge women to reach for a better version of themselves each day.
I am Rachel Hollis. I am an author and a lifestyle influencer and a speaker and a mom of 4. I do a lot of things. So I actually grew up in Bakersfield, and is very much like you picked up West Texas and dropped it into Southern California. So everybody, almost everybody works in agriculture, drives a truck, wears Wranglers, the whole thing. My father was a Pentecostal minister. My grandfather was a Pentecostal minister. So I grew up Pentecostal in a small country church with maybe 200 people attending, and 187 of them were family members. So I was the baby of 4 children, and I grew up, I think as the baby, you are oftentimes attention seeking. So the way that I kind of learned to get attention or notice was performing. I grew up doing theater. I, always wanted to make people laugh. I always wanted to tell stories. My family on both sides from Oklahoma, so we have a long history, and Irish, so we have a long history of like storytellers and the fish tail that gets bigger and bigger every single time the daddy tells it, that kind of thing. So that was, church culture was a huge part of my life growing up. I say this in the book, but I didn't ever think like, oh, there's only one way to be, because I frankly didn't even know that there were other kinds of people. Very homogenous. Everybody around me was just like me. Everybody around me was Pentecostal. Everybody around me, same education, same color of skin, same background. And it wasn't really until I came to LA that I understood that not everybody grew up the way that I grew up. So I had a pretty hard childhood, pretty rocky life, pretty traumatic in a lot of ways. Life appeared wonderful from the outside and was really hard inside. That oftentimes the preacher spends so much time caring and loving on everybody else's family that there isn't a ton left over for their actual family. So it was really hard in a lot of ways, and I, from a very early age, just started to daydream about what it would be like to get out, what it would be like to not be in this space. And, LA, frankly, was the closest city. It was 2 hours away from where I grew up. I mean, a world away and 2 hours away. But I just started to daydream about a different life, a better life. I can't fathom my 11-year-old, because I have an 11-year-old, daydreaming of like getting out, but I really was from a very early age thinking about that and what that would mean. And so from the second I got in high school, I took every class I could in order to graduate early. I graduated as a junior, and in retrospect, it just seems absolutely bonkers that a 17-year-old would move to Los Angeles. Like, I couldn't even sign the lease on my apartment. I had to have my mom sign for me to move here, and got into school. I went to an acting school. I was gonna be an actress. That was my big life plan. But immediately started working. I would go to class in the morning, and then I started working as a part-time assistant in the afternoon. And I got offered a full-time job. At a production company where normally you would have to have a college degree to get the job. And I just thought, well, why in the world would I do 4 years of school? Like, I've been offered the job now. So I just dropped out of school and took the job, and I've been working ever since. I mean, I think that my initial reaction to recognizing that there was other was not, it was never that there might be something wrong with them, that it was the first time that I questioned if something was wrong with me. So it was the very first time. I remember one of the first things I focused on when I moved here was getting rid of my accent, which is crazy. Like, that's bananas so my whole family's Southern. So if I'm with my Southern, like, Okie family, like, y'all, we'll get a real deep drawl real fast. And that was the first thing I did, because I recognized that other people didn't speak like this. The first time I said y'all, and they teased me at the office, not in a mean way, but just like, you know, they weren't used to hearing it in the entertainment industry. I recognize, that's not, I want to fit in and I want to belong. So many people do this. So you adjust yourself to be more like them so that you fit better in the mix. So I think that was probably the first cultural thing, was I need to change myself to be more palatable to everybody, to kind of easily slip inside of in any environment, instead of just being part of this little group of people that I came from. I think I want to tell you that I was like so worldly and into everything, but truthfully, I was probably fearful of things I didn't understand, and truthfully, probably not doing a good enough job to seek out people who were different than me and make sure that my worldview was being adjusted constantly. Like, who I was then at 19 versus who I am today at 35. Obviously, we hope, two completely different women. But I think I probably reacted more out of fear of you're other and I don't understand, and so I'll just stay over here with what I do know. And I think that I've done really well with the idea of fake it till you make it. I think it's such a funny thing in business. You know, I speak a lot at business conferences, and it's a question that you get often. Do you believe in the idea of fake it till you make it? And I do, because I think it's worked really well for me. But I also have always been smart enough that, you know, to be quiet and to listen and to ask questions and to not assume. If you're going to sort of put yourselves in if you're going to put yourself in these situations, that you have to be open to what you're going to learn, that you kind of have to let the process guide you versus assuming that you know best. You know, you're like a 19-year-old, you have no idea what you're talking about. And I think I was smart enough to understand, I'll get myself in the room, but I'm going to be quiet and listen and absorb, rather than just assuming that I know best. And even like the idea that I wanted to be an actress when I was little, and I did musical theater, and I was on stage a ton, and I would have, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, even if that would ever come into play in my life again, I would be like, absolutely not. What are you talking about? And now I look at, you know, we do this big women's conference. We're a couple weeks out of our big women's conference, and being able to be on stage and speak and hold an audience and entertain them and communicate and teach, all of that came from doing plays when I was a little girl. Or even the idea of, I would have never told you that I followed in my dad's footsteps at all. And we were talking about the conference yesterday, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, it's taken me this, like, I became a different version of what my dad did. My dad stood on stage and talked to people and tried to help them live a better life, tried to communicate wisdom and stories from his own life to help them do that. I'm like, I'm doing the same thing. Like, I'm doing it in a secular space, but I have, oh my gosh, like, wow, this is all lining up. And the idea of authenticity is not something, even when I got started as a blogger, that wasn't popular. People didn't do that. And I remember the very first thing I ever put on the internet years ago was I wrote a blog article about having Bell's palsy. I've had it 3 times. It's facial paralysis. And I tend to get it when I've been stressed out. And I wrote this piece about it because I thought it would be helpful to other women, which has always been my goal. And I put a picture of myself with Bell's palsy. And I got a call from a publicist that I was working with at the time, and she said, you have to take this picture down. You have to take it off the internet. This picture's forever. It's still there. You can Google image it. She asked me to take it down, and I had already received so many notes from women who appreciated who appreciated my post, and I was like, nah, we're gonna leave it there. And that was really the first step the reaction to that post was the first time that I realized that there was power in sharing your true story, your vulnerability. So that first post then led to, more and more me talking about postpartum depression or problems in my marriage. I just started to really share the truth of what I was going through. And my intention from the very beginning was that I would never share a hardship if I couldn't also share with you what had helped me get through it. So I would never talk about a hard thing just to talk about a hard thing. That's not really my style, because I think, well, shoot, that doesn't help anybody. I want the tangible solutions to kind of help me get past this. So that led to years later on a beach in Mexico, sharing a picture of myself in a bikini with my stretch marks and talking about, it wasn't intentional. I didn't plan it out. I just said what I was thinking, which was, hey, I wear a bikini even though I have all these stretch marks, and the only man whose opinion matters knows what I went through to get these, and he loves me just the way I am, and be proud of your body. And I know so many women who'd kill for the opportunity to have carried 3 babies. And it went viral. It went all over the world. It was seen everywhere. And that was just another step into, oh man, women are really craving this. They really want to see the truth. They really want to see that. And when Girl Wash Your Face came out, and the response was, I've never experienced anything like it in my whole life. The day after, a couple days after, I was like, wow, this started on a beach in Mexico 3 years ago. Because really, that post, the response to that post made me realize how much people were craving this kind of conversation. So it wasn't super popular when I got started blogging, but the idea to speak truthfully and then seeing the response to it is what has led me here. And I can look back over a decade and a half and go, man, you were like, this was so divine. Of course, I couldn't have understood it at the time. And I think I will look back in 5 years or 10 years and go, you thought that was divine? Like, you didn't even know what was really happening. So I love seeing that process. I think were probably my struggles with my view of God as a child versus my view of God now come from really the struggle wrapped around who a woman should be. That's really where my struggle, like with my own identity and who I am, because I was raised in an environment where women should stay home, they should take care of babies, they don't work, you should be subservient, you should be small, you should, you're a daughter, like just all of that stuff. And I really, really struggled with that, because how do you reconcile this business that I've built and this work that we're doing and this platform that I have, which I believe, like, how can I believe that God gave me this platform, but also that he doesn't want me to have it or talk about it or be proud of it? So I really, for years and years and years, I struggled with this idea. And I had an epiphany, maybe 4 years ago. I had gone to a conference, and I was, at the time, really struggling with, like, if you had asked me, if we ran into each other at a party and you said, like, what do you do for a job? I would have said, I'm a blogger. Not that I have a media company, not that I have the staff, not that we produce these incredible events or do this beautiful work in the lives of women all around the world. I wouldn't have told you any of that, because I was raised in a space where good girls don't talk about themselves. They're not, and I still get this, by the way. I still get so many people on the internet who will say, for instance, I had just posted something last night where the book is doing really well, and I posted on my Instagram a thank you to my audience, like, you guys, thank you so much for talking about this on your social. You are why this book is doing so well. I'm so grateful for your love and support, just like me loving on my tribe. And the response that comes back from people, and they're hateful. They're like, how dare you? This is the glory of God. This isn't about your audience or your fan base. God made your book a bestseller. I'm like, God did a lot of things, but we're missing the point here. So I really struggled with reconciling that for a long time. And then I had this epiphany and I just thought, oh my gosh, God made me this way. He made me this way. And if he made me this way, if he put this desire on my heart, how can it be bad? I think it could easily turn bad. You could easily start chasing the wrong things or go after the wrong success. But like, if God puts a fire in your heart to be a stay-at-home mom, that is beautiful and incredible. And why can't we say the same thing to women who God puts a fire in their heart to own a business, to employ other people, to do missional work, to build a company, whatever it is. So I think if I've struggled with anything, it's that, and just like such a peace. It was an incredible peace in my life 10 years ago when I truly understood the gospel for the first time. You are loved and worthy and enough as you are. And it was a life-altering moment for me when I realized not only are you loved, but there was purpose in how you were designed. And even if you aren't designed exactly like her or your mom or your sisters or the other women, there was a reason that you were given this desire in your heart to do something. And it is a travesty when you don't own that. When I set out to write the book, I didn't know that I was writing lies. I just thought, let me write about the hardest seasons of my life and let me talk you through the steps that I took to get past those seasons. And when I got about halfway through and I started looking at all of them, I was like, oh my gosh, they were all lies. It was none of this was true. My girlfriend said something to me years ago. I was telling her that I was struggling with something, and I was like, I just get so mad at myself because I feel like I've done this before. I've struggled with this before. I've beat myself up over this before. I've, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And she was like, oh girl, the devil doesn't have any new tricks. which is such a good Southern, like, oh, the devil doesn't have any new tricks, Rachel. He's going to attack you with the same stuff he attacked you with when you were 14. But it's so real. Like, those things that you walk through when you're young, the things that someone placed on you when you were 13 and they told you that you, when you started to learn to define yourself by your weight, when someone said something to you and you learned, okay, I'm not enough as I am, I've got to do something else. All of that plays into the women that we are. And if we don't become self-aware, if we don't call that out, if we don't look at it in daylight and go, wait a minute, this isn't true, this isn't real, I don't have to carry this with me for the rest of my life. If we don't have those moments, it'll stay with us. And 5 years from now or 10 years from now or 15 years from now, the devil doesn't have any new tricks, man, it's gonna stay with you. Culturally, if the market, if the world, if the media can make you think something is wrong with you, they can get you to buy something, right? If you're overweight, we got a diet for you. If you are sick, we've got a pill you can take. If you're unhappy, here's a vacation, here's clothes, here's makeup. You don't feel pretty enough, we've got something you can do your hair. If we can make you confused, if we can make you unsure, if we can make you hate yourself, then we can sell you things. And we are so used to it because we've seen it since we were little girls, and our moms saw it before us, and their moms saw it before them. We've stopped questioning it. We've stopped wondering why women have to look a certain way, why we have to be a certain size, why that jacket's in this spring and this one's out, why we just accept it as part of our life, as part of culture, and we don't recognize all the different ways that we're being bombarded with things that will make us insecure about who we are so that we can buy something. So I feel like it's like we're sold this stuff from the time that we're a little girl. And because it's part of our culture, not only are we getting it from the media, but we start to do it to each other. So we learn that a beautiful woman only looks a certain kind of way, and now I'm going to strive to be that kind of woman, and if you're not, there's something wrong with you. Or we're going to learn that good moms are only the moms that stay home with their kids and breastfeed and give their kids an organic diet. And if you step outside the parameters of what I know to be true, then there's something wrong with you. Because this makes me feel safe. Because if I can make you feel insecure, if I can make you unsure, you'll buy into the straight and narrow. This is what we do. I actually feel like we do this a lot with church, a lot with our denomination's the only right way. Our church is the only right way. This is the only way you're allowed to worship. This is the only way you're allowed to love God. And if you step outside of this, I can't talk to you. I can't be friends with you. You're wrong. And you have to cling to that because you're uncertain. And these rules that are in front of you that you've decided to accept, that makes you feel safe. So we're seeing it all day, every day, in every single way. And you need more people to just stand up and go like, wait a minute, what? What is this? And the only way that happens is if more people feel empowered to tell their truth, to say, hey, I know this is the norm. I know that, on social media, every woman has six-pack abs, but like, I have a muffin top. I don't know. Like, hey, I know that mom is like killing it and her kids are in 75 activities and they're, they say yes ma'am and no sir. My kid just rammed his head into the wall and lit the kitchen on fire. So that the other 75 moms who had the same day can go like, praise the Lord, me too. Like, I'm not the only one. So I just think it's our culture. And I think that we accept it as the normal part of life and we don't question it because nobody's questioning it. So for me, I really love these hair extensions. I love them. I love makeup and I love cute clothes and all the things, but I don't for 1 second think that you need to have that. I don't think that you even need to be interested in it. It's just this fun thing that I do. But that's balanced with, it's super important to me that if you see my Instagram with, pictures where my hair looks super shiny and I'm in a cute outfit, that you also see just as many posts that we're putting out into the world where I look like garbage and my hair's in a bun, I haven't showered in 3 days, and I'm like barely surviving with my children. I think it's just showing real life. Part of the intention behind writing the book was I wanted to tell you what I had walked through. I feel like it's really easy for me to stand on stage, giving a keynote, or you to watch my YouTube or whatever and hear me talk about motivating yourself to get back on the wagon or trying again or not giving up on your dreams. It's really easy for me to say that. And I knew, and I know, because I get the notes, that there would be people who would say, well, that's easy for you to say with your house and your husband and your company and this. And if I never told you what I had to go through to get here, you might be able to give, to have that be your excuse. Because that's what you're looking for. If you're attacking someone else and saying, well, it's easy, it's not hard for you, you've got it all figured out, everything just falls. Well, you want the excuse for why I've managed to do it and you have not. So if I could tell you that I have a high school diploma and I've built all this, if I could tell you the trauma of my child, if I could tell you the really crappy, hard things that I've lived through, and not only did I bounce back, but that I am reaching for joy every day, that I am the most positive person that you've met, that despite what I've gone through and despite what will happen, and even there's hard times still coming, because this is life and I'm alive. As long as I'm alive, hard crap is gonna show up. But if I have trained myself to like you said, rebound, to reach for good things. I had someone had asked me at the beginning of the year how, like, I know you talk about being positive and gratitude and focusing on your blessings and that. I know you talk about that stuff and it's so easy to be happy when life is good. How are you supposed to still be happy? How are you supposed to still be joyful when life gets hard? How do you do it when you find out that you have cancer? How do you do it when, your mom has Alzheimer's and you're taking care of her? How do you do it when your kid's sick? How do you do it when you lose your job? And I was like, oh man, y'all think I've been training you to be joyful, to reach for joy every day. And what I've tried to teach you is how to make it such a habit, how to be so grateful for every single blessing that God has given you, how to be so positive, how to be so strategic with, I'm gonna wake up in the morning, I'm gonna reach to be a great mom, I'm gonna reach to be a great wife, I'm gonna reach to be a great leader, so that when life gets hard, so that when the horrible thing happens, it's so habitual inside you now that you don't know how to stop. I was never trying to teach you how to be happy when life was happy. I was trying to teach you how I learned to be happy even when life was hard. Wake up. It's a new day. It's a new week. And if you choose it, it's a new life. You get to decide right now who you want to be. You get to choose in this moment how you want to show up in the world.
Believe that you're worth it. Believe that you can. Believe that you're capable of whatever you set your mind to.
Ask yourself, how would the best version of me live out this day?
Waking up an hour earlier and using that time for yourself, using that time to work on your goal, you have time. You're just spending it doing something else. Success is about choosing between what you want now and what you want most.
Imagine it in detail. See yourself eating the way the best version of you would, staying hydrated.
If you are not taking care of your physical body, there is a 0% chance that you're gonna become the version of yourself you wanna be.
Working out, dressing, speaking to others, looking for blessings throughout the day, the way the best version of yourself would do it.
You are creating your reality right now.
You are the only person who is in charge of what happens next.
You've got to stop procrastinating. You've got to embrace right now, and you've got to fire yourself up to propel yourself to the future.
You need to own what you do. You need to own what you do.
See yourself in detail and map out the day in your mind. If you cannot be the person you want to be right now, in this second, right now, if you can't make the decision right now, in this moment, you don't have a why that's strong enough. And if you don't have a why that's strong enough right now, you won't have a why that's strong enough on Monday. If you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. Don't leave today's version of you to a random chance. Choose who you want to be. Choose how you want to be. Then live today accordingly. How you start your day is the most important choice that you can make in your whole life. So I wake up super early. I'm like a 5 a.m. kind of girl because that's the time before my kids wake up. So it's one of the things that I most recommend to other women is getting up an hour before your kids. So you're starting the day on offense instead of defense. But taking that time to pray, to meditate, to work out, to do something for yourself, to center yourself, to remind you who you are, who you want to be, where you're going. It is a hard season as a business owner, and a book just came out. The next one's due right when my event happens, which is so dumb. Why did I do that? I don't know. And I have 4 kids. It's the thing I struggle with most. It's the thing that every pastor is like, that's great, but when do you rest? I'm like, right, I will work on that. So I think when I sat down at the beginning of this year, I did something I've never done before. It was super helpful. I audited my calendar from 2017. So it took me about 3 hours. I went through every single appointment that I had in 2017, and I wrote down basically how I'm spending my time. And I was really clear with myself about, okay, what were the things that I think were a waste of time, a waste of money, a waste of energy, and there were a lot. And what are the things that I really value? Date nights with my husband, time, vacations with my kids, a spa, I'm gonna go get a massage, dinners with my girlfriends. What are those things that I really care about? I want to build my calendar around those things. I want to build my calendar intentionally around the person I want to be, not who everyone else keeps trying to pull me to be. I heard someone say, and I don't remember who, but there's nothing on your calendar that you didn't put there or you don't allow to be there. And women struggle so much with saying no, because we want to please everyone, and we want to take care of everyone, and we want to make sure, they ask you to volunteer at your kid's school, you got to do it, and show up at church, you got to do it, all this stuff. Making sure that you are really thoughtful about what's on your calendar, what's in your life, who you're showing up as, because I think otherwise it just gets away from me. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, it just gets away from you. All of a sudden a week's went by or a month's went by and you're like, wait a minute, where am I in all of this? So the greatest lesson, gift, tool in my life, every single day of my life, every single day, I make a list of 10 things that I'm grateful for. Every single day. And the piece of advice I always give to anyone who's trying this for the first time is do not make a list of big things. Don't say I'm grateful for my husband, I'm grateful for my job. Make a list of things that happened to you that day that you can feel gratitude over. Because if you know at the end of your day that you're going to have to write down 10 things, you will spend your day looking for blessings. You spend your day noticing a gorgeous sunset, appreciating the cup of coffee that you have in the morning, being grateful that you got to giggle with your friend on the phone, and it changes your perspective. It changes everything. I believe that you choose your attitude. Every single morning you choose your attitude. I was doing this last night. I was feeling really anxious because we have our biggest event of the year is in 2.5 weeks, and holy smokes, that's scary and a lot of responsibility, and I want to do a good job and all those things. And I started to have anxiety attacks. I have suffered from anxiety for a long time. And by the way, gratitude is, it sounds so cheesy, but gratitude is truly how I got past anxiety. So as I'm falling asleep last night, I start to have anxiety. I immediately, it's a trigger for me. Nope. Here we're gonna do some meditation. We're gonna do some prayer on things we're grateful for. And I made myself last night as I'm falling asleep, just that day, I'm like, remember when I got home and Noah screamed because she was so excited to see me? That's my daughter. And remember the hug that Ford gave you? That's my son. And remember how Dave brought you a cup of coffee this morning? And remember how you got to talk to your girlfriend on the phone? And then I started to fall asleep, and I really did. The anxiety crept up, and I was like, no, okay, we gotta keep going. Tonight we're gonna do 20 things. It's such a powerful tool for me because no matter what season you're in, and I have done this in really, really hard seasons, there's always something to be grateful for. There's always something to be joyful for. I mean, if someone is listening to this podcast or watching on the video, that means you've got a phone or a computer. That means you have access to the internet. That means you are doing better than 99% of the world's population. You have things to be grateful for. So gratitude is a really big part of my perspective and my attitude, and I just carry it with me every day. That same conference where I told you I had an epiphany was the first time that I had really thought about that. They had us meditate. I didn't grow up meditating. I was just like, hi, it's called prayer. It's the same thing, just different, yeah. But it was the first time that anyone had ever talked about meditating on gratitude. We all did it as a group, and on that day, he was sort of going through the meditation, and he said, think of something you can be truly grateful for, And what popped in my head, completely unbidden, was I talk about this in the book, but we had a very long process through adoption to get our daughter, and we had the year previous been placed with newborn twins that we had for a month and a half, and that we thought were our daughters. We were adopting them. They didn't have names, they were my daughters. And 6 weeks in, their biological father came back and decided that he wanted them, and we lost them. And in that season, one of the hardest experiences in my adult life, it felt like my child had died. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone who's lost a child, but I had these babies, and they were mine, and then they were gone. And I didn't know, are they being fed the right way? Are they on the schedule? Are they cold? It was horrible. It was a horrible experience. And that was one of the hardest seasons of my faith journey in my entire life, because I felt like I kept saying, we're here because you called us here. God, you called us here. You called us here. The song that I would cling to for 4 years as we went through this journey was Oceans. And so there's this line, you called me out upon the waters. And so I just was like, you called us out upon the waters and you left us here. And where are you? Where are you? Where are you? I can't. It was a horrible, horrible experience. But I'm a year removed, or however long it was, and I'm at this conference and we're doing a meditation on gratitude, and he says, can you think of one moment, a specific moment in time that you can be deeply grateful for? And without thinking about it, I could feel the feeling of the babies asleep on my chest when I brought them home from the hospital. And it was the first time that I could that I could understand that you could have gratitude for something horrible that happened. I had never been able to feel joy about that experience after it happened. And in that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, there's so much blessing in this. For the time that you were together, you were so blessed to have them in your home. And I have to believe there was a reason they were there for that time. And I have to believe they're exactly where they're meant to be. And I have to believe that I'm a better person, that my husband's a better father, that we're a better couple, that we're a better family, all of these things because of that time that I had those babies and that feeling of them on my chest. I was able to feel grateful for something hard. The experience was so horrible, it was brutal, it was so hard. And now, of course, again, it's one of those things I look back and I'm like, oh, you were just lining it up just so perfectly. I'll tell you the end of that story as I'm walking through the season of where are you? You've called me on the water and you've left me here. So we had started a adoption in Ethiopia in the program for a year and a half, 2 years. It closes down. So that's a failed adoption. We had girls in foster care. They were in our home. They end up leaving. We have the twins. So at this point, 5 girls have cycled through our lives. And after the twins left, I was like, I'm done. Maybe we're just supposed to be happy with our sons. We are so blessed. I didn't feel like I could do anything. I couldn't function. I literally cried all day long. I would come in my office. I would close the door. I would cry. I would take care of my kids at home. Then I'd go in my bathroom and sob. Lost a ton of weight. Just couldn't get past it. I bounce back. I'm a positive. So for me to have an experience where I'm like, I can't come out of this. I can't move on. And I told my husband, I don't want to adopt. I'm done with this process. And he's like, he had heard at work about an adoption attorney that a few people had used. He said, please come and meet with this attorney. I'm like, I can't do it. And he, I always tell this story because I want to give him credit for this. Most of the time in an adoption process, it's usually the mom that kind of pulls you in and the dad kind of goes along for the ride. And he pulled me out in our backyard, and it was the first time in 5 years, 4 years or whatever it was. He said, he fought for the adoption. He said, our desire to have a daughter did not go away because it got hard. Your dream for your life doesn't go away because the journey got hard. He's like, we will have a daughter if we're willing to keep moving forward. If we're willing to stay in this game. If we're willing to keep taking steps, we will have a daughter. The time will pass anyway. Let's just keep walking towards this goal. So he begs me, please go meet with this attorney. We go meet with the attorney. I'm still not sure. I feel very weird about the whole thing. And every time you start an adoption journey, you're looking at 2 more years. And he took me to lunch afterwards. We're sitting at this restaurant, and we're basically rehashing all the years of the adoption process. I'm wearing big sunglasses. Behind the glasses, I'm crying. And it's LA too. So just to paint a picture, like nobody's, we're very close to our neighbors, but like nobody's acknowledging us, and we're just going through all the things. And I just said, I cannot do it. I'm like was sobbing, babe, I can't do it. And all of a sudden this man slams his hand down on our table. And he says, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I have to, and he's like stumbling over his words. He says, I'm adopted. And my parents lost children in the adoption process. And if they had not kept moving forward, I would not be sitting at this table. And I would not have met my wife, and I wouldn't have graduated from college. He starts listing all of his accomplishments. He says, you can't give up. You can't give up. You have to keep going. You have to keep going. And his name was Noah. So I'm like, I've been crying for 3 months. You called us out upon the water, and you left us here. And then you sent us Noah, which is why our daughter is named Noah, because it was a stranger that day at the restaurant who slammed his hand on the table and told us to keep walking forward in faith. And on the way, we finished lunch and the way to the car, I went to go wait for valet. And I really had felt like, truly, for 3 months, I had felt like, where are you? Where are you? That was my prayer. I just couldn't hear him. I was lost. Where are you? And I'm waiting in line to get my car, and I just heard God speak over me like, I am here. I have always been here. Sometimes it's harder to see, but I'm always with you. I don't think that everything happens for a reason, but I do believe it's possible to find meaning in every experience. It's a really incredible shift in your perception to understand that life isn't happening to you, life is happening for you. And that choice is yours. You get to decide, did this just happen to me, or is there something for me in this? This is maybe just the most cheesy example in the world, but when I was in labor with my first baby, 52 hours, it was horrible. Pushing him out was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I remember thinking, oh, we've got this. We've got this. You have gone through so much worse. This is nothing. If you can stand alongside a life as it leaves this world, you can certainly show up as a life comes into it. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. But you can sit in misery and pain and anger and decide that life sucks and it's unfair and it's all happened, everybody's against you. Or you can look for, gosh, what was the lesson in this? Or what was the gift? Even when it's not something life did, even when I make a mistake and I screw up and I'm like, oh, I can either be mad at myself and I can beat myself up here, or I can go, okay, that wasn't our smartest move, but there's a lesson somewhere in here. And it's only wasted if you don't find that lesson.
Thank you for watching Jesus Calling Stories of Faith. Be sure to join us every first and third Sunday of each month for a new Jesus Calling Story of Faith, debuting live on the Jesus Calling Facebook page. You can also find our stories on the Jesus Calling YouTube channel and on Instagram's IGTV through the Jesus Calling Instagram page. Be sure to subscribe to the Jesus Calling YouTube channel by going to youtube.com/JesusCallingBook so you can be notified when a new story of faith is available.